But 20 years in the Legion will make a boy man. 20 years in the Legion and they will give you land. 20 years in the Legion, you'll always have a home. 20 years in the legions of Rome.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to this episode of How Shit Works. We are having some technical difficulties that seem to be rolling downhill, but don't worry, we're going to take care of it. I am Sir Erik Martell. I am a knight and a landed baron. I'm also the Knight of Kittens, the bringer of joy. And trust me, this is not our first rodeo, even if it feels like we're going to fall on our ass all night. Anyway, tonight, we are very fortunate to have as our special guest, and possibly two special guests. First, Earl Robert Glendon of Vach, a former Meridian and Society Earl Marshal, and hopefully, if we can get the technical issues figured out, our current Earl Marshal, Master Edward of Yarborough. Earl Robert, thank you for joining us. Would you please tell our audience a little bit about yourself?
Hi, guys. Okay, so it's all SCA related, really. My birth group, if you will, was Thorngill down in Montgomery, Alabama in 1980. So you can add up the years there. I have lived and fought in, I think, 11 or different kingdoms. I was knighted in the Outlands at Estrella War in 92, I believe. And I have served as an Earl or a Knight Marshal and Earl Marshal at every level from Shire to Society. And then now, even after a good break, I'm one of Master Edward's deputies, much to everyone's chagrin. And yeah, my lovely lady wife has been in nearly as long as I have, and our kids all grew up in it, and we must like it, or else we'd have got out a long time ago, I guess.
Awesome. Well, Robert, thanks for joining us. We're really glad to have you with us. All right, we'll try my part of the intro again. Hi, I'm Ulrich. I am a Knight of Pelican and a Royal Peer, and I don't know how to work a mute button.
Par for tonight.
So when we had a problem with Master Edward internet, I wanted to make sure that my sound wasn't going over across the intro, so I muted my mic and then just continued to talk. Anyway, so welcome to tonight's show. The drinking words for tonight are Armor by Master Edward, Flounder by Earl Robert Glendon of Vach, and Fighter by the lovely Baroness Gwen, who is trying to destroy my liver. You're welcome to drink with us or not, as you choose. Does not have to be alcoholic. Does not. You do not have to drink. It's totally up to you if you to drink or not if you want. It's an opt-in, fun game. For the record tonight, because it's National Margarita Day, I'm drinking margaritas in my wonderful Firehorse Pottery mug. As always, we'd like to thank Between Two Peers for allowing us to be a licensed franchise of their drinking game. I see that Master Edward has joined us. So, Master Edward, would you like to give us a little bit of an introduction to yourself?
Sure. I'm Edward of Yarborough. I started out in Osprey in 1980. I moved on to Falling Star, which was the Troy group. And now I'm in Thorngill. I've been a local Knight Marshal in 2 different kingdoms and 4 different groups about 9 or 10 times now. And now I'm the Earl Marshal of Meridies for more months, actually.
Awesome. Right before Erik gets into his last bit, I'd like to just right quick. We brought donuts tonight just for old Robert.
Gas station donuts.
Gas station donuts. This is very important. If you want to hear the donut story, you can join us in the Zoom meeting after the show, where I'll have Robert tell you the story.
After we read you a waiver of liability from the story. Speaking of disclaimers and waivers, we want to point out that this show is about how things work in Meridies. Every kingdom is different. If you are if you're coming from a different kingdom, this could be very different from your average experience. We're a little kooky down here. The heat will get to you. This is just how we do things. So now we're going to get started off with our first question. And the first question is a two-parter, as many of our questions are. And the question is, how does one become Kingdom Earl Marshal, and what are the qualifications for the job? And since you're the current Earl Marshal, Edward, we'll let you go first.
Thanks. Okay. How it's supposed to work in a perfect world.
Let's go with how it's supposed to work, Edward.
In the world as we know it, it's supposed to approximately a few months before the end of their time. The Earl Marshal puts out a call for resumes or interest in his office. In my case, though, I was approached by the Kingdom Seneschal at the time and asked to and asked if I would put my hat in the ring, which I did, and lo and behold, I ended up Earl Marshal of Meridies. The job description is you have to be concerned about the safety and the well-being of the fighters in Meridies. You have to be concerned with all the armor regs, and you have to be an authorized fighter. Is one of the ideals for it. Though the way that I've worked it in the last couple of years, a non-knight could be Earl Marshal, but optimally, it looks better if there is a knight as Earl Marshal. And I hope I answered the question.
Thank you. Earl Robert?
Well, it was a little different in my case. I had always been in the marshalate almost from the get-go. Thorngill, when I joined, was very small, and we didn't have very many fighters. And the Honorable Lord Baron Vladimir of Arkhangelsk had been their Knight Marshal forever. And I took over fairly quickly once becoming I'm trying to remember. I think I was around when the authorization system was started. You didn't actually have to be authorized. Yeah. So
you were.
We went through all of that, and I've been in the marshalate forever. And Gulf Wars was kind of the impetus. Sir James Galen McGrew was the Earl Marshal, and of course he was in charge of Gulf Wars, and he was having stress, and he was having difficulty and all this stuff. And so I became his deputy, and I became his deputy for Gulf Wars, and then actually helped him run Gulf Wars. And then, of course, when it came time for James to step down, really, I'd love to say, well, they looked around and they go, well, there's Robert. He's highly qualified. He's seen the inner workings of the beast. And actually, it was nobody else wanted it. So, and I have always felt like one of the marks of a peer is that you do your job. And, Knight's job is fighting. It's all about the fighting, armoring, teaching, everything in the fighting track, if you will. And so I took the job, and the rest, as they say, is history. And then got to run Gulf Wars for 4 years, and like that. So that's basically how I got picked, if you will.
Thank you.
Picked. All right, so we've talked about the qualifications. What's the process? I know that the way part of how it works now is every officer job in the kingdom, every greater kingdom officer job must be advertised in the Pop Shiv, and then But once you get those applications, how does that work? How does the selection happen? Does the selection happen?
Well, I'll go first. It has no bearing on me. That when I was selected, those rules weren't in effect, essentially, and or maybe they were, and they were retroactive, and nobody bothered to say yes. So, I mean, it wasn't like, and as Edward can attest, probably, for the higher level kingdom offices, there's just not a whole lot of people falling all over each other trying to get those jobs, because they are jobs. Don't be confused. They're big jobs and can cause a lot of stress in your hobby life and your regular life. And so you have to be aware of all that, and you have to learn how to mitigate all that. So a lot of people don't want, this is their hobby, this is their fun, it's what they do on the weekends. They don't want to have to work. I get that. Not blaming anybody for that attitude. I'm just saying not a lot of people sometimes looking. And in my case, nobody was looking. It was like, hey, Rob said he'd do it. And there you go.
Oh, let's see. Process is you advertise, you get interest, resumes, you set a deadline, you go over the resumes with the Crown and with the Society Earl Marshal nowadays, because those are the two people, the Crown and the Society Marshal sign the warrant for the Earl Marshal. So if you do your due diligence and you look at it and ask them their opinions, you can come up with an educated solution or an educated choice. And that's what I'm going through right now.
Awesome. So once you get all that, do you have to flounder around for the answer, or does you just go right in there?
Nicely done. Nicely done.
Well, in my case, I make my recommendations to the Crown. If they agree, I make my recommendation to Society Marshal. If he agrees, then I announce my replacement, and we go from there.
Excellent.
Thank you both. So you were both peers when you took the office. Do you think that was important?
You want me to field this one first?
Sure.
I will. Okay, so having this particular kingdom job, I believe we have seen non-peers, I think one non-peer do the job, but that was back in the 80s. I don't know if Robert remembers that. But for the most part, being a peer when you're in this job not necessarily makes it easier, but you already know the peerage system, and you know how to talk to everybody. Guess that kind of settles. Robert, you go.
Yeah, absolutely, positively. I think you not only need to be a peer, but I think you need to be a fighting peer. And further than that, your job can be easier, can be easier if you are a higher level fighting peer. I think if you are Duke Sir as an Earl Marshal, then it could be easier for you, particularly at a certain event or in a big war scenario or something, because you have to have the chops to, sometimes just over argue guys. Besides a squire who is the Earl Marshal of a kingdom. And oh, by the way, I lived through this. I watched this in action. The squire was well intentioned and mostly up on the rules, although there needed to be some work there. But this individual just sometimes could not get their point across. And and unfortunately, they were run over by knights and royal peers who, had been fighting longer, much longer in many cases. And we're not going to listen to this individual. And if you are, if you are a fighting peer, and then you have sat the throne, I think that can make things easier for you. But at minimum, I think you've got to be a fighting peer. And I've always told people, I tell the knights that you should, as a knight, seek this job. This is your job, and fortunately for all of us, Edward has, 35 years or whatever, or 40 years of fighting experience under his belt, and everybody knows that. So some of the difficulties he might have had as a pelican or a laurel, for that matter, he didn't have to experience because he had those chops. He had that sweat and blood behind him. So yeah, I don't think you should put a squire in that job, or an apprentice or a student of any sort. They are just bound to get torn up, because there are people, particularly from other kingdoms, who think because they are dukes or somebody, that they just can ignore the marshalate and the rules, and steamroller you like you're nothing. So there you go.
We all love and respect Edward. All right, so now that you're in the office, how much paperwork really is there, and do you have deputies, and do your deputies make that paperwork less, or do they make that paperwork more?
Okay. I have a deputy for every single discipline that is in the marshalate, save one. I'm still trying to work that one out. All of them report. They give me numbers, because thankfully the report to the Society or Marshal just requires numbers, and it's almost identical to our reporting for the local night marshals. So it's do it online, takes me about 10-15 minutes to do, but it's trying to get all the other information in to make that report go through. And all of my deputies are great people, and they're doing a wonderful job, and they get me the information I need, and we go from there. Graf?
Oh, so my experience is much like Edward's. I, as many people will know, I don't want to have anything to do with paperwork. And in fact, as a Kingdom Earl Marshal, I tried to eliminate it as much as possible. Then I found out, I cut down the number of reports that we were sending, because I had tons and tons of paperwork from previous marshals, and to what end? We weren't doing anything with it but collecting it. So I'm like, well, you got to report once a year. And in the first year, when 2/3 of the groups in Meridies couldn't do that, we all went back to quarterly. And then I got I had some hotshot deputies, and I made them do all the regional. I was just a compiler. Like, I got the West region, I got the East region, I got the horse people, I got the archery, live weapons people, and as Edward says, numbers. they just sent me a single sheet, which was the best thing. And sorry about that. And then I just compiled the numbers and put them on a form. And unless you have an unusual event, which I had several, you have to do a lot of you should not have to do a lot of paperwork, but it is about numbers. It is about, I don't know what they're doing with the numbers, quite frankly, because nobody's ever been able to articulate that to me at any level of the society, but you do send a lot of numbers up. And I mean, so there you go. You're a number cruncher.
Yep. Totally agree with you.
So we mentioned your hotshot deputies before, and I'm sure they appreciate the recognition for doing a job well done. But how did these deputies work? How were they chosen? And why am I the best one?
Well, I'll go first on this one, if you don't mind, Edward.
Go ahead.
First, let's take that last part first. You are breathing and have all your fingers and toes. So there you go. That's for Erik. And choice, really, in my day, and please, the listening audience, please understand, I was Kingdom Earl Marshal back in the late 90s. Okay, so it's been a minute. Okay, now I don't know what it's like now, but I do know people in high places like Edward and Graf Ulrich and Erik and those kinds of people, and it doesn't seem to have changed much as far as the number of candidates stepping forward who really want the job, right? But I did it a little differently because I have been in the marshalate so long, and I thought I knew some of the ills that you could avoid. And I immediately got a hold of Sir Connell McDale, who he had said at one point, he says, well, someday I want to be Kingdom Earl Marshal. That's all I needed. I didn't ask for a timeline. And I made him kind of like my marshal without portfolio. He was my deputy, my special investigator. He was the voice of reason. All that other stuff. And it was my intent within just a very couple weeks after taking the job that he would track me the whole way, and that when I was ready to get out of here, we'd have a ready-made deputy. And then we tried to find a deputy for him so that he would have a deputy, ready-made. So you would have anywhere between 2 to 3 years of training, seeing how the marshalate works before you punched out of the net. So that's how I, when it was a very personal thing, I was arrogant enough to believe that along with my fighting experience and marshalate experience that I could find the right guy. Well, Connell became Kingdom Earl Marshal. I think he did a great job as Earl Marshal.
Yes,
somebody can tell me different, but I think he did a great job. So I think at least in that small area, I was vindicated.
Well, in my case, I kind of let the deputies cultivate their deputies, which has worked very well recently. However, when I took the office, I decided that it was just too many different little groupings to have to deal with, and I decided that heavy combat needed its own deputy. And being the first one to take the job, I looked around and I thought about it, and I said, Erik Martell, right out the gate. I didn't even ask anybody else, because I remember I talked to Robert about it, and he thought I was happy. And you've done a very good job,
Erik. Erik, I endorsed your choice. I don't want him to hear that on public television.
Oh look, he's been fine. And right now right now he's got a lot on his plate.
That's fair. Yeah, gas station donuts.
Ooh, man, I love a gas station donut. You know that.
Totally a thing. All right. So, Master Edward, what's the most difficult part of your job? And how have you handled the switch to virtual SCA and not really being able to have any fighter practices? You know, you've already covered your reports are pretty short right now. So,
Yeah. Yeah, currently being in pandemic hold, it's view social media as a tool. It's not the end all. It's a tool. It's one of the tools in my toolbox. Before we went into pandemic, as Robert said, there were some stress moments in the job, and it's just put your head down, keep going, press on. In this case, even with the pandemic, put your head down, press on. And you guys have done a wonderful job in doing that also. And in this, and in the Crown List videos you show on Saturday nights. And I haven't missed a one yet. Oh, maybe. But you guys, thank you. Thank you for that, because you kept them going too.
thanks.
So, sort of while we're in the subject of what has happened during the pandemic, what plans do you have for fighting when we can safely gather again? Is there a specific plan? And what kind of changes can we expect to see, if any?
Okay, Robert, can I field this one right out the gate?
Well, that you absolutely should, because I have no plans other than to just fight.
Okay, now what I do mundanely is I work in live theater, and live theater were the first ones to close, and will probably be the last ones to open. What I have learned in everything is you got to be able to fly by the seat of your pants. So a lot of things are going to happen as we get closer to the reopening date, and everybody will wake up about a month before probably, and it'd be like coming out of a stasis box and going, okay, I've been in suspended animation for how long? And things will start steamrolling. The different deputies will start working on what their protocols are going to be. And I believe I chose for the armored combat one of the better protocol guys I could think of. So I'll expect, but coming out of it, I want to see everybody safe. I want to see everybody stay safe. And one of the biggest things that's going to come through is, if you don't feel well, don't go to fighter practice. Don't go to meetings. Stay home. Be respectful of your friends, and don't be stupid. Pure and simple.
Ooh, gonna be tough, that last one.
Yeah, well, a couple of shots in the helmet, everybody will be stupid again anyway.
Remind me to send you my proposal for kick knives.
Robert? No.
Come on, we'll talk.
Okay, Robert, do you have any opinions?
I'll
on
make
this
you wear a
particular
cone
subject
head.
before we move on?
It's been done. No, I can only echo the Earl Marshal's sentiments. I mean, the issue, I think, when we go back, when we finally are able to gather together, like the first Gulf Wars or whatever, how in the world is the state of Mississippi going to contain us? We're going to be so joyful and frenetic and just over the top and squealing and charging. I mean, people are going to be out of shape in a lot of cases. unused to fighting, probably, and swinging for the fences. So we're gonna have to, have the whole, hey, everybody calm down. We all like fighting, but we all like to fight tomorrow talk. So, whoo, it's gonna be an explosion. So yeah, it's gonna take some. As long as we have eyeballs on everything, we'll be fine. But yeah, the whole thing is, don't fight sick. Try and remember your limitations. And talking as an old guy, that you gotta factor that in. So I don't think we'll have a big problem. It'll just be trying to slow everybody down.
I'd just like to point out that round and lumpy is a shape.
It is, and I have it. So, oh yeah, Eric,
I call it a long-range fuel tank.
Don't even.
So, Martell, as our resident fitness guru on this show, you got anything on that one before we move on?
Right. If you've gained the COVID at this point, it's probably 40. You're not suddenly going to be an Olympic athlete at a joy alone. You need to be stretching and moving around and putting down the fork months before we get back to fighting. And if you do that, maybe you won't have a soft tissue injury. If you don't, you might have a soft tissue injury. And if I know you just let it happen, I'm probably going to laugh.
I expect you to laugh.
I'm just saying, if you do it to yourself, you've done it to yourself.
All right, so just for the record, the first thing I'm doing when we get back together at one of these wonderful event things and we can fight, I'm gonna hug Erik.
No.
We'll make that a group thing.
I'm pretty sure I can beat you in the 40, the 100, the 2,500, and the 5,000.
You can't beat all of us.
I'll wait by your car.
We'll bring the whole army.
Yeah, we got some speed
with
demons.
consent. It's a thing. All right, so at some point we are going to get to have another crown list, but let's not talk about that one. Let's talk about what the Kingdom Earl Marshal's responsibility is during crown lists. How does that work?
You want me to go first?
You are the Earl Marshal. I'm just kind of like the backup.
Okay. So, being a Pelican and being Earl Marshal allowed me to do something that I believe Ulrich thinks is a very good idea. I was able to stay off on the sidelines and keep an eye on the fighting so that I could be one of the last adjudication of anything that would go wrong if it went wrong. Because we all remember if anything happens on the field, it goes to me and then it goes to the crown and then it goes up higher if it has to. But by that time, I don't think it's going to go any further. But I was able to sit off on the sidelines, watch intently, and allow the knights to do their, as Robert would say, to do their job, to marshal the crown list, and to do something that is in the tradition of Meridies for as long as I can remember, and that's the knights taking care of crown list and making sure it's clean and it's honorable and it's good. And the results are unquestionable. And I believe the last two have been very good. Thank you, guys.
Well, it was, it was always explained to me, this is the King's tournament, but you get to make sure it works. And the Earl Marshal has a certain amount of authority up to a point. And certainly in Meridies, as we're almost all dyed-in-the-world monarchists, we never really want to step on the king's toes. I I can't remember anything really untoward happening in any of the Crown lists that I ran. And I always felt like it was my job to be out there and to point out if there were problems, pointedly. But to leave, if there was any kind of punitive decision, and like I say, I can't remember that we ever got to that point with any of my Crown lists, but it was you serve in an advisory capacity to the Crown. You go to the Crown. If it's a rules violation, that's one thing. He doesn't have a half gauntlet, so he needs a half gauntlet, or blah blah blah. That's one thing. But if it's, hey, this guy's really being kind of a jerk, well, that's something I can recommend, certainly, but that is something that their majesties would need to address, I feel, unless they just left it up to me. So that, head referee, head advisor, baleful eye of justice, whichever way you want to look at it. Never only impartial in the sense that you don't care who's fighting. You just want to make sure everybody's doing the right thing.
Yep. Agreed.
Thank you both. I'm going to freestyle on this next question, and now I'm contractually obligated to apologize to Jessica for it. Sorry. Robert, it's been a few years since you were Kingdom Earl Marshal. What do you see that's changed with the office since you served, and what was the single stupidest thing you saw?
Oh, man, so many stupid things. Okay, so just from my Kingdom Earl Marshal time, not society, right?
Right. Let's stick to our knucklehead.
All right.
I want to quote my Squire Laley here and say let's embrace the power of and.
So the dumbest thing that I guess was it the dumbest? I didn't see it, but it was the most. I'm going to take the back end first. The dumbest thing that ever happened that I never saw, but that had all kinds of repercussions attached to it, was a phone conversation I had with my Western Regional Deputy, Count Sir Francois Duvant, one Sunday night. Count Francois is in my line of knighthood, and I talked to him fairly often, and loved and respected the man, thought he was a god on earth almost. And when he called me, I knew something was up, and he said, well, we had a problem at a fighter practice. I'm like, oh, really? Like what? And I'm thinking guy didn't take his shots, or guy got angry, or gal got upset, or somebody did something to somebody that wasn't in the rules or whatever. It was kind of like that. He said, well, we had a guy got shot.
Excuse me?
Got shot.
Like with an arrow, right?
No, like with a gun. So
that's against the rules.
Yeah. Oh yeah. He went. Well, yeah. He went down. He took it as a leg shot. Because what had happened was he was an off-duty sheriff's deputy in Louisiana, and he had a backup gun, a small caliber, thank the good Lord,
God,
caliber gun in his back pocket in his working pants, and he had gotten off shift and rushed to the park because he really wanted to fight. He was really into it, and he just left his pants on. He took his duty belt off, thank the Lord, and his badge and everything, I guess, and went to fighting with the gun in his pocket. And then somebody stepped up with a good old Meridian butt wrap, bam. Now he wears metal legs, so he heard the metallic clack, and he felt the sting, and all that stuff. Come to find out, he'd put a 22 caliber round through both his butt cheeks and into his thigh.
I want to know who throws a 22 caliber rap.
It just, and I'm having the same reaction you guys are having. I was like, what? He did what? He did what? And I'm telling you what, this is very funny now. And it got to be very funny very soon.
Right,
But in the middle of all this, I was chilled to my gut. I just went cold because had the gun been oriented differently and gone off and some child been standing by, let alone an adult would have been bad, but a kid, oh dear God in heaven, the issues we would have had, not to mention somebody else getting shot. But as it was him getting shot, and he got shot in the butt, and it was his own fault, it became funnier quicker, which was good because we were all just shaken up about the whole thing. So, Francois, what do you think we ought to do? I told him, I said, well, I need incident reports. I need, EMT. I need, he's in the hospital and all this other stuff. And I said, I'll drive to Louisiana to talk to this guy, but it's not going to be funny. He said, no. He says, I don't think you're going to need to do that. He said, first of all, I've already talked to him in the hospital, and his boss, the sheriff, has gone by and seen him in the hospital. He said, I don't think you could do any worse to this person than this guy did. So I think he got the message there. And then I told Francois that if he wanted to come back to fighting after he was healed, he would have to be cavity searched for 6 months. So that was the stupidest.
Okay. For the rest of the story, from the rank and file fighters, reading that in Pop Shiv was like, you gotta be kidding me. Oh my God. And then the humor hit. And I don't think that guy, I never saw him on our side of the kingdom.
I don't know who he was.
Nope.
I don't know if he stayed in, all this other stuff, but that was I gotta say, that was the dumbest thing I'd ever heard of. So what was the other part of the question? What's changed?
I'm gonna need a minute to get over the double tap to the ass. So it's what do you see that you think has changed with the office since you were Earl Marshal?
And some people are not going to like this, but you're just going to have to hear it because you did ask my opinion and what I think has changed. I think the marshalate is heading the same way that in many ways that our society is. The bod often is full of people who I think are trying to do the best for a wide range. There's not many of them. They're trying to take care of tens of thousands of people across the globe. There's all these different opinions, but it's safety, and more safety. Let's study how we're going to make touch kill a reality, and how we can avoid a lot of it. By the way, doesn't just have to do. I don't want anybody to misconstrue this that I think, in my day fighters were tougher. Well, no, they weren't really, but they're just as tough as they are now. But the society is a corporation and it has liability issues, and so in an attempt to avoid liability, which has already stung us a couple of times, I think some of the rules are tending more and more towards being more safety oriented without proper data backup. And I am as guilty of this as anybody, by the way, because while Society Marshal, I was at Penzic, and part of this is Godwin's fault. I was at Penzic with Godwin.
That's fair.
And he noticed that they were selling, and a lot of people were wearing half gauntlets that did not have any hard casing on the bottom part of the wrist. They went about, 2/3 of the way, and then the bottom third was open. As I read the rules and interpreted the rules, and about how you armor things and what you protect and how you protect it, it seemed to me like the wrists were not protected. So I didn't ask anybody. Now, I'm the guy who had a whole council, a whole board, an advisory board of senior marshals to deal with things like this. But Godwin points this out to me at Penzic. I go around and I look. I decide unilaterally that everybody's doing it wrong. And I just put out this ruling. Hey, if you got these, crazy half gauntlets, you need to put something over here. Oh boy, I got torn up. And thing is, by letter of the law, you probably should have something across there. But the fact of the matter is, nobody's getting hurt in the wrist. Once I checked around, there was no data to suggest that we had a wrist armor problem.
There's no data for anything. We don't report our injuries.
That's a whole nother subject, bud. Look,
yeah,
trust me.
yeah.
When we get to the point where we have laments, I'll just, crank up the volume. But so that, I let that one go. So there you go. I think that we're trying to move, quite rightly, to a society-wide standard that can be explained and understood by anybody across the globe. And we've been doing that for 30 years. And I'm not sure if we're there yet, but we're kind of getting close. And, and I don't know, maybe some of the regulatory things have changed. I think Edward's going to have to talk to that, because once I got out of the society job, until I took the job with Edward here recently, I took a break from the marshalling. So
cool.
I don't really know.
All right, Edward. So what takes up most of your time and energy? This one's specifically for Edward. And I got one at the end.
Okay. Okay. So before the pandemic, it was the personal messages that were coming in about 2 or 3 times a night, asking questions. Hey, I want to do this. Is this legal? And I'd send back, have you read the rules? And they go, I said, have you read society rules? Well, no, I just wanted to. No. Go read first, and then come back. That's why my Hey Master Edward has come out on Facebook, because I was getting questions and it was easier to answer them overall, and that was taking up about when I first started getting into the job. I was doing 40-hour weeks. When the pandemic hit, it's cut down considerably. Mm-hmm. I'm just wanting us to get out of the tunnel and get back into fighting.
No, that's fair.
Back into fighting, throwing ballista bolts, shooting arrows, all the things.
And flounder.
Doing all the things. So, for both of you, what did you find most rewarding in the job? Robert, what was most rewarding? The fame, the glory.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There was so much fame and glory. No, there were 2 aspects, really. I think, now that I think about it, which I didn't really think about it as being rewarding. I thought about it being a job, but not to flounder around too much here. But I was happiest when I could make something understood, when there was a conundrum, a kerfuffle, whatever, either directly in a fight or outside of a fight, when guys are like, hey, Rob, what's the rule on this or whatever? Because you are expected to be, and you should be, the rules expert when it comes to fighting. So people would ask me all the time, so, hey, I've always heard this, and I've always heard that. And that was one of the most rewarding things. And the other thing was, I don't know any other way to say it, but freeing groups from the tyranny of crappy people as far as fighting goes. You had a guy in your group who just terrorized the other fighters because he could, or didn't want to call his shots, or hit too hard, or constantly was telling them the wrong thing. Straightening those guys out and getting a group back on an even keel as far as fighting goes was rewarding to me, and quite frankly, I thought it was just part of my remit. So there you go.
Edward?
Wow. You mean what's been rewarding with the job?
Yeah. What have you found most rewarding?
Getting to know more fighters than I had known before. Getting to know a lot more of what fighters think about, what equestrians think about, what combat archers think about, what rapiers think about, what siege people think about, and it's been very rewarding getting to know more people than I did before. That's what's been rewarding for me.
No, that's pretty good. I see Robert very good has drawn a flounder for us.
Well, that counts. Well, actually, that's two.
My mug is being refilled.
I'm gonna make sure you eat them.
I owe
I'm
you
gonna
two
make sure
when I get back.
Gonna go find a seafood. Now I got seafood on my mind.
All right. So next up, we have our topics of myths and misconceptions. And because I generally take the most controversial, most problematic, and throw it out there, but on our list tonight, we have a crap ton of those. So I'm just going to go with one of my personal ones. Why is the Rose Tourney at Gulf War such an ugly ass fight?
Oh.
Come on, one of you.
All right.
Go ahead, Robert. I'll end up too.
I've been involved with the Rose Tourney many, many times and far too intimately, but I got to say not lately because I had to just step away. This is one of those instances where the pressure to perform has overcome the natural chivalry and adherence to the fighting rules at times, almost inevitably. It is unfortunate but true that every year my lady wife and many of the other Roses ask me or some other of you knights and marshals, can't anything be done? Would you my own, I gotta say, my wife's like, would you marshal the Rose Tourney? We just don't want to have any more incidents like we had last time. And I just tell her no. I say, I've done that. All it does is cause bad feelings. People don't like to be told, and I'm just going to call a spade a spade. They don't like to be called they're thick. They don't like to be called they're unchivalrous. They don't like to be called on the rules.
Yeah.
We got whole kingdoms sometimes interpreting rules in a way that is completely bonkers. All of Anstiora thought that the rule that says you must wear a demigauntlet with a basket hilt meant that you did not have to wear a demigauntlet with a basket hilt. A whole kingdom was taught that. And it was in a tournament at Gulf Wars that we had to get this pointed out and resolved in front of who was then the Society Earl Marshal. And I was like, how do you get there? But cultures being what they are, when you start mixing them together, and particularly, it just has to be said, for some number of unbelted fighters and some number of belted fighters, if you get into a champions fight, but the Rose Tourney is unbelted, those poor guys are so amped up and they have been deficiently trained. They are culturally unprepared for what should happen, and the Rose Tourney is invariably ugly because of it. And this is not something that I have kept to myself all these years. I have told several Earl Marshals, Society Marshals, crowned heads, knights, and the fighters themselves. And I am not sure that it has had a single iota of effect. There you go.
Well, bravo. Yes, bravo. Being on the outside of marshaling for the Rose Tourney, because the last two Gulf Wars have been a bust for me. Watching it from the outside, it was like what other people would call an ugly brawl. And I agree with Robert. It's a cultural it's a cultural thing that a lot of those guys, and one of the things is that I agree with Robert. They're so hyped up wanting to win and to show off that they're not thinking about the core value of why we fight, which is the chivalric standards and the knightly virtues. And it's like almost like it goes, that part of the brain goes beep and they're done. And they go, I gotta win, I gotta win, I gotta win. It's like sometimes just showing up and being the most chivalrous fighter out there will turn a lot more heads sometimes. But we have cultures that think winning is everything.
So one of the things that's happened in the last couple of years is His Majesty and a few others have changed the format of the Rose Tourney, and it's made it a little better. But it hasn't fixed it. It hasn't fixed everything. But they've also instituted a Most Chivalrous Fighter Award, so that, and that's given out, of course, by the Roses. So
that's nice.
The Rose Tourney. Yeah, so that's helped some. Hasn't fixed everything, but it has helped. All right, so my turn for a question, and it's one of my personal favorites because I happen to remember have a bug about this, but so do knights actually have to go through armor inspection?
Yes.
Hell yes.
Wait, you mean our belts don't get us out of it?
No.
Nope. Sorry.
Oh man, those bastards lied
I
to
mean,
me.
the thing is, okay, so I know you didn't ask this, but if I'm doing the inspection, I did a lot of inspecting. While I noticed that our previous Kingdom Earl Marshals didn't get involved with inspecting very much. So I made it a point to do a lot of inspecting. I traveled a lot while I was KEM, and I did a lot of inspecting. And this really surprised people. And then I found out where knight marshals were doing the wrong thing and where knights were doing just what you were talking about. And they're like, well, I went to a group, they were going to have a tournament, and I noticed that a couple of local knights had not come over to be inspected. And I said, hey, y'all, come on over and be inspected. And they told me they didn't need to be. Well, I was unaware of that particular codicil. Yes, knights have to be inspected. But the deal is with me is this. I admitted this while I was in office, so it's not like I kept some dark, dirty secret. If I know you, and I know a lot of you, just remember that. If I know you, and I know your armor, your inspection may just be, hey, man, you changed anything since the last time you fought? Got your cup on?
Always ask.
And I look at you. Got your cup on? Okay, good. You're done. We don't need grabby, feely, clang, clang, clang on your helmet. We don't need any of that. My view.
Edward, you got anything?
Total agreement. Okay. Everybody gets inspected, and every piece of equipment, everybody gets inspected. No ifs, ands, or buts.
All right. That was pretty simple. So let's roll on to another controversial subject because I love those. Can you pull an authorization card just for the fight, missing shots in a fight?
I'll let Edward go first.
Okay. For just missing shots? Or is it a pattern?
Well, okay.
Now that's
implicit in this question is that you have missed multiple ones recently in this series of fights.
Okay. If I'm standing there and the local marshal hasn't talked to that person, I will stop the fight. I will go talk to them and say, did you feel that? Do you remember getting hit over here? And if they say, what? okay, let's look at your armor real quick. And that's the warning. You need to straighten up. And if they continue to slough off shots, yeah, marshals can make somebody go sit down for the rest of the day. And in my world, because if everybody else is calling their shots and doing the right thing, yeah, that's one of my pet peeves. That is one of my pet peeves. Because if you're sloughing stuff off, no, you get warned, and then you get sit down for the rest of the day. And then you start, as long as the local marshals are documenting that this person is doing the same thing time and time again, yeah, then the card gets pulled, at least for a little while.
So that needs to go in your report.
Yep.
Right?
So
the local marshal
needs
to put that in the report.
Yep, go in your report. Or if you have a problem child and you want me to know about it, I have no problems with people emailing me.
Just so you know, heavy fighters, we have a brand new, done during the pandemic, incident report form that will go out to all of you before pandemic starts back, so that when we start back, if you have problem children, you can fill out these incident reports, so we have documented cases, so we don't have to put up with people getting away with stuff anymore, because we have a paper trail. And then those people who do not want to play by the rules and the spirit will find out that their participation may not be as well loved as everyone else's.
See, one of the things,
and I said fighter, so
yep, there we go.
That was twice, actually.
One of the things that Robert said earlier was the documentation of injury reports and stuff like that. In order to find out if there's a particular problem with a set of armor, whether it's forearm armor, band braces, elbows, or whatever, if there's no documentation, armor standards stay the same. But if you start getting news that stuff's starting to there's not enough here or not enough there, then you can adjust to that. But a lot of cases, it's like, guys, why are you hitting for the bleachers? You don't need to hit for the bleachers and break them. But that's just my pet peeve. Sorry, no, Robert.
No do I actually need to answer this? You want me to weigh in on this?
You don't have to if you don't want to.
I mean, the question was, does a local marshal have the authority to pull a guy's card just for missing shots?
That's the marshal of the field.
Marshal of the field. Yeah. Pull a guy's card just for missing shots?
Yes.
I didn't work it like that. In my tenure, I let everybody know very clearly that I considered all of the fighter authorization cards, they belong to me, actually. And so you just get to retain one as long as you mind your P's and Q's. And so I, as you well know, I took several cards and did things with them, but that's another story. And that's
awkward.
And it would depend hugely on what was going on, but I would prefer, and I think I let all my sub-marshals know, that if they'd had a problem that they thought was egregious, first of all, they didn't have to take the guy's card to make him just sit down and not fight. Right. Every marshal had the ability to do that. All marshals, blanket marshal, hey, I feel like you're unsafe, and so you need to sit down, okay? His card, if he wants to take the guy's card, if he feels that, the problem's escalated to that point, I let them all know. My phone works 24/7. Call me. Document what's going on. Give me a, and with Edward and with everybody else who's ever had a job in the SCA at all, paperwork. And I used to tell guys all the time, unless I saw it or it got written down, it didn't happen. And if I saw it, I had to write it down to make sure other people realized that it did happen.
Oh yeah.
Then you could,
I've been there.
Snatch a guy's card up. So. But yeah, snatching cards at the local marshal of the field, whatever. It'd have to be very egregious. It'd have to be a senior kind of guy, that kind of stuff. Joe Blow at Squire Tiny Hut, their 3-man tournament. It's probably a little iffy.
So I could get by with it then. I could do it if I needed to.
You've been under scrutiny by the marshal ever since you dropped the bug mask helmet, Your Excellency. So.
There's a callback.
Wow, we almost got to see that on the screen.
Cool.
Nice. All right, so we're to the live feed questions, where the people who have asked questions and asked questions live as we've gone along deserve to get their questions answered. So earlier on, you guys talked about you got the job, Robert, because no one else wanted it. So is nobody else wanted the job a common issue for getting deputies or getting the Earl Marshal's position?
In my experience of, what is this now? 1980, almost 41 years, 40 years.
Yep.
Yeah, it's fairly common, and I think it might come and go. You might see some sine waves in there, but I think mainly it's a constant where everybody at every level. I'm not just saying about Kingdom Earl Marshal or Society Marshal or finding officers is hard sometimes.
And the pandemic hasn't made it any easier lately either, especially on the local level.
That's something I didn't even think of. I would have thought during the pandemic it'd be a little easier because everybody's in place and you could just kind of, swap phone calls. You don't have to do much. I mean, if you're a night marshal now, you don't have much to do, but that's interesting.
Yeah, I've had a couple of groups, and then, reporting, as Robert can say, reporting, sometimes you have to really remind them they need to report. They need to make their reports in on a timely manner.
So you're saying send in your damn reports?
Yeah, pretty close. Yeah. Yep.
It's not that difficult. Send it by Flounder if you have to.
Oh. Well done.
I'm drinking margaritas. I love this shit.
I'm drinking orange flavored water.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, well.
All
right. So I'll take the next one. And first of all, I'm going to do 2 by Wolfgang von Westenberg because he's like that.
Who let him in here?
The first one is, can I have a codpiece with a thrusting tip? And if not, why? You're Trimarian, so of course you can. Don't let the man keep you down.
Yes!
They don't make cod pieces that small.
Now the second
thrusting
question,
tips that small. My bad.
Now the second question is, he really needs answered because it's about tact. What is a tactful way to get a fighter to acknowledge what appears to be a good telling blow?
You want to go, Robert, or you want me to go?
They said tactful.
Okay. So, tactfully speaking. Okay? Tactfully speaking. I'm going to go by decades that I've been fighting. In the 80s, we'd have let Baron Vlad, hey, Vlad, fight him. In the 90s, it would have been
wait. That needs elaboration. You guys didn't see Vlad when he was, well, maybe you did, Erik, when he was in Fighting Trim in the 80s, and he used the atomic pogo stick. He was not very good, but if he landed one of those great big 2.5 or 3 inch thick logs on you with both hands, you straightened up right
the ground. Your feet came off the ground.
You straightened up. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
So in the 2000s, I watched a pickup fights after a crown list where Gareth was fighting a guy, and Gareth finally said, "I can't fight this guy anymore." And Robert sent Godwin to fight the guy. Don't know if you remember that one, Robert.
I do not, but I mean, I've used Godwin as a object lesson.
Tactfully speaking, tactful can be here. You need to learn that this blow's good before somebody lights you up somewhere else. Yes.
I have a question. Are you saying that using Godwin is tactful?
That's a great observation.
I'm sorry, using His Grace Godwin is tactful?
Judiciously.
No. I think he means tactical, not tactful.
Oh, okay. My bad. All right, so Wolfgang's got another one that's actually...
Hang on a second, guys. I got a phone call I got to take.
No worries.
So let's just go fighter.
Damn you.
A fighting flounder in armor.
Bastards. All right, so Uncle Robert, tell us a story. Have you ever seen a fighter attempt to run a real hay wagon over an opposing line?
Yes, I have. So this is a great story. I hope you guys are ready for story time. So I was not yet a knight. I was a squire living in Albuquerque, New Mexico, the Outlands, and had discovered this fabulous war called Estrella War, and had convinced some of my Meridian friends to come out. And this was while Duke Lawrence of Ashana, the man who just knows how to talk, came out with Bear Killer, and I think he had Pat Padrug in tow. And I'm not sure about Ray. I don't think Ray was at that one. This is the very first one I think almost any Meridian had ever been to. So Trelon of the Woods was the once and future king of Atenvelt at the time. And we were getting ready to fight a big bridge fight. And Lawrence and Bear and I are standing there watching all this going on. And we see Trelon's walking towards us. And they're moving a, I don't know, probably 2-ton flatbed hay rick on, rubber wheels up onto the bridge. And Lawrence goes, "What do you think he's going to do with that thing there?" Beckler was like, I put archers on top of it. And I told him, I said, "No, I'm pretty sure he's going to push it down the bridge and knock everybody over with it." Lawrence said, "He's going to do what?" "I don't think so." So by this time, Trelon's closed up, and Trelon, like, and this is perfect. I wish you guys could have seen it. It was like he took a glance at me, realized I was a squire, and then I disappeared. As far as he was concerned, I was nowhere near there. But here was, Bear Killer and Lawrence, and he was going, "Yeah, just Society or Marshal, I thought I'd come over here and just tell you about our plans, so we don't have any misunderstandings or whatever." And long story short, he was indeed going to fight a little bit, then move all of his guys, and then push this 2-ton device or more down with a metal edged, by the way. No padding, no nothing. He was going to push it down the bridge where your option would either be get out of the way or get run over. And he saw nothing wrong with this. And Bear Killer, he's got kind of a short fuse. He went red right away. He says, "Are you out of your effing mind?" And Lars goes, "Easy." He says, so tell me again what you're going to do, and then I'll, And he was like, we're going to, He said, "Well, what about if people getting, you're going to have steel on people contact and, all this other stuff." He's like, "Oh, no, they'll jump out of the way. Nobody will get hit. It'll be fine, all this other stuff." Bear Killer's like, "You lost it, man." So I took Bear Killer and I got him a little ways away, got him a little calmed down, while Lars continues to talk to Lana. By the time I come back, they're both bowed up as tall as they can get. And Trelawn, and he's like, what? I'm the king of Edenfeld. Lonzo Shaw goes, and I'm the Society Earl Marshal. You take that thing onto the bridge, you ain't moving it. I never seen Trelawn so mad in my life. He was all red. He stomped off like a kid. His little sabatons clacking as he went off. Oh my gosh! They had to pull that thing off, and that was a special night. That night after all the fighting, that was really special. I may or may not have been involved in a goon squad that ambushed him out behind the beer tent later. But yeah, so I have seen it. Yes, an attempt.
Allegedly.
Allegedly. You can roll it up there and you can fight from it, but once it gets there, it ain't moving.
You ain't moving it. Lawrence told me later, he was like, how are you living out here? These people seem like they're savages.
Well, you know, I did live in Ann Stewart for a year and a half. I kind of know part of that.
Dude, I lived there almost 5 years. I know.
We're supposed to move on, but there's another one in the myths and misconceptions that we can't not talk about. Uh-oh. Is it true that Sir James Galen McGrew found a real axe covered by a padded axe that got stuck in a shield?
Jimmy told me so. Jimmy told me so. James told me so.
I saw it. I was running around with him as a deputy when that happened, and for some reason we needed to. I can't remember the circumstance why we needed to open this axe, but we opened it up, and it was in fact an axe with foam over it. But my comment was, well, did the edge come through the padding? Because I don't know. I mean, maybe it's okay.
All right, let's wrap it up. Erik.
We didn't even have time to talk about pepper grinders. Oh,
the Ric Flair weapon.
So this is the point today where we normally do shout outs. We're still going to do shout outs. I'm just skipping mine because I'm still laughing. So do you gentlemen have anyone like you'd like to mention who have been doing good things in the kingdom?
Go, Edward.
Oh, geez. I'm trying to catch my breath after that laugh. Shout outs. Oh, shout outs to all the fighters who are keeping the faith and getting ready to go back to it. Simple as that.
I'll do the unexpected thing and shout out you two guys for keeping the flame alive virtually.
Oh God, yes.
I personally am kind of ambivalent about electronic SCA, but I got to admit I think that the two of y'all are doing sterling work. I also want to just kiss that booty and say their majesties who have been so good about doing the same thing in their virtual world and keeping all of us together. And I'll even stoop further in booty kissing and say people like Edward and the rest of the greater officers and minor officers all across the kingdom who are, everybody's hanging on by a thread, but we're still hanging on. And it's because of folks like y'all. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Robert.
Erik, you okay, buddy? Erik is checked out. All right, so I'll do my standard thanks to or shout out to Calbart's Corner, who's doing good stuff. He's got like 17 different shows. I really like his one with Duke Sean out of Utah, whatever kingdom that is. because the SCA is weird right now.
Eldemir.
Eldemir. No, that's not Eldemir.
No, wait, Eldemir is Canada.
Yeah, that's not Eldemir.
That's where
Utah.
the Eldemorons go.
What is Utah?
It's the other A kingdom.
It's a state. It's shaped like this.
It's not Ethelmark, is it?
No. Ethelmark. It's like
It's in the east.
SCA geography is weird.
Abaco?
No.
Right?
No, that's
How do we
north.
not know this?
Nick's got it. Nick's got it
here.
for us. Artemisia. Thank God.
Artemisia.
Thank you, Nick.
That's it.
Why do we have all these A kingdoms?
All
It's the first letter of the alphabet.
So
We're not real bright.
He's doing a show with Duke Sean from out there called "What Makes a Night." They're covering different things. Last night's was the having the right look, and that's certainly a thing. It was a good show. Also, Between Two Peers for allowing us to be part of their drinking game. Lots of great stuff out there. I got to watch an Outlands Royalty the other day. That was really, really good stuff where they're interviewing former crowns. If you wanted to learn anything about Interkingdom anthropology, there's so many shows right now that you can go out and check out and just learn stuff. Meet new people too. It's fun. All right, Erik, before we move on, no, you're still tapped. All right.
I'll be good for the thanks.
Good job, Robert.
I live to serve.
problem. So for our guests, is there anything that we haven't covered tonight that you want to cover right quick before we go? Anything that you're like, you bastards didn't let me answer this thing about this whatever subject having to do with the Marshal that you wanted to make sure we covered? You're fine.
I'm good. I'm good.
Oddly enough, flounder's been the most used word tonight.
Yep. And they thought armor was going to get y'all.
Yeah.
Damn you.
Anything you'd like to add, or Robert?
You guys broke Erik. That's amazing.
Well, I'll just say this. I don't, regardless of my experiences, I should say maybe in spite of my experiences and all of the issues that are involved, if you're a fighter, it seems to me like you should definitely enjoy yourself, but you should aspire to be a knight. And if you're a knight, you should aspire to be an Earl Marshal, and you should do your job. And it can be quite a lot of fun, but it is a job. Just realize that. That's all.
Oh, yeah.
We'd like to thank a lot of people who are involved in the production of this. First, we'd like to thank Master Edward for giving us an insight into the Earl Marshal's office as it's currently run. We'd like to thank Earl Robert for the booty kissing, because that was a whole lot of booty that just got kissed. We really want to thank our support crew, Ladyship Jessica of Osprey, who keeps our tech running, even though we're a couple of semi-trained monkeys. Mistress Adriana for her wordsmithing. Her Excellency Katerina for doing martyr's work in trying to keep us on time. Lord Kikuchi for technical advice. But really, most importantly, you, our audience, because without you guys, Ulrich and I'd just be standing here talking to ourselves and looking like morons. More like morons.
All right. So our next episode will be Monday, March 1st. Again, on the Officer Series, where we'll be doing the Kingdom Exchequer. We'll be interviewing Baroness Katya and Mistress Karistina. So don't forget to join us for that. Also, special this Thursday night on Ask the Knights Live. Don't forget to catch your favorite Meridian web show host duo as they appear on Ask the Knights Live and get interviewed. Normally, it would be by Baron Logan Pathwarden, but he has some family issues, so Lord Cal Barter will be interviewing this time instead. So catch us then.
So if you're watching live, give us about 5 minutes for a break. Then feel free to come join us on Zoom for the after show. Watch the live feed comments on Facebook for the links. We're going to hang out and chat for about a half an hour after the show. Graf and Katerina will post notes. Now, and we will do our best to make it even more ridiculous than the last 15 minutes of this show.
I'm really not sure we can do that. Read the chat, Eric. Do you want to cover that before we go?
Oh yeah. Oh hey. So turns out we're gonna do a
thing
that I completely forgot about because I've been laughing for the last 15 minutes. So, as sometimes happens, I made a social media post about late period garb, and it sort of snowballed into we're going to have a thing, and this thing is going to be comic book Landsconnect. In other words, we want people to come to me, and I will assign you a comic book hero or villain, at which point you will make Landsconnect gear that reflects that hero or villain's uniform. Understand this. You might not like why you're given a thing, but I won't tell you what it is unless you ask me. It could be a bad reason I've made you a hero, or a good reason I've made you a villain, or it could be completely at my whim, or anything else. Disclaimer, you might not actually end up as a comic book character. You could end up as like Grimace from the McDonald's commercials.
All right, you got Katarina buying in now. Just for the record, I have submitted to Eric's will, and I'll be having made a Nick Fury set of Landsconnect. So you can join us.
What happened to Knights of Jerusalem, man? What?
Oh, I'm doing that too.
I'm not giving up. We're just making one. Look, I can make plenty of outfits. I've got Roman. I've got Norse. I've got
I'm sorry,
Crusader.
I just can't see myself in Landsconnect anything.
I can't see myself in it either. But once I have it, I will. It'll probably be a Waffenrock because fat guys wear Waffenrocks.
Right, and apparently I have to wear the fitted one.
Because you're the only one who can, you goob.
Robert, think of some of the knights from Mance Diora, okay?
Oh, Jesus. Some of them might watch.
Yeah, I know.
Join us.
So we're leaving now before we get sued, and we'll see you in Zoom.
So smash the like and subscribe buttons up there if you're on YouTube, or down there on YouTube, or up there on Facebook. We'll see you guys next week.
I have Zoom on my computer.
Love you guys. We'll hook you up, Robert. It's okay. Just click the button.
We got you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
If I die in battle, tomorrow I'll be home, though it's 70 days march to there from Rome. But a soul travels swiftly on the night wind, and if I die in battle, I'll be home again.